But we are on YouTube Live. This is June the 11th or 12th. This is the 12th. I missed a day.
It's the 12th.
The 12th. It was the 11th yesterday. Hey, we have an exciting guest, an exciting show for you today. We have Neil's better half. Miss Alicia is hanging out. And what is your last name, I guess? Is it the same, I guess,
it's Robinson, yes.
Wow, Alicia Robinson. Should we go with middle name as well? Just for grins and giggles?
It's Danielle.
Alicia
or Winters.
Danielle Robinson.
Whatever.
We've been trying for a long time. We got her behind the curtain. So yes, this is Neil's better half hanging out with us. We appreciate you. Welcome to the Through a Therapist's Eyes
Thank
podcast. You. So if you're finding us for the first time on this platform on YouTube Live, we fire up before you fire up the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all those type of places. So this is a good way to interact with us while we're in the middle of the show, so that you can do comments and this type of thing, and we'll interact with you as we go if you have thoughts. So, Neil, you are doing multitasking. You proud of me? I didn't even hit you right when you're trying to type until now.
Yeah, you did. I stopped typing because I knew you were going to do that.
And then I didn't do it.
No, you did it. You still did it. You introduced her, which introduces me, and so then I had to stop typing.
But you didn't have to interact with us. You were good. I thought I did good.
But I'm still on the camera.
All right. He gives me grief about when we do the month-end reviews. He's trying to set stuff up, and I'm trying to talk to him. So we pick on each other for that.
Yeah, well, it's hard.
So we are missing John and Victoria, and the show is going to be on a topic: the healing power of relationships. So it's kind of a unique topic that it'll be cool to have Alicia, we can consider you a non-clinical person. Is that true?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, she says. Okay. So we missed them because childcare, sick. It was just a crazy, weird day. So that's where Alicia jumped in and saved the day, actually. Like I said, thank you once again.
You're welcome.
So, Neil, we are ready when you are.
We can go ahead and get started. So, all right, you ready?
Yep.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, this is Through a Therapist's Eyes on June the 12th, 2025. The show topic is going to be the healing power of relationships. So you have landed on episode 315. The questions that I want you to ponder and think about while we're talking is, what relationship in your life has had the most positive impact on your well-being? We might answer that, Neil. I'm going to give you guys a little heads up. I thought maybe we'd answer that, actually. Anyway, then second, when have you felt supported or healed by someone close to you, and how did it affect you? And then thirdly, what's one small step you could take today to strengthen a bond in your social circle? So the healing power of relationships. And we have a cool special guest. Miss Alicia is with us.
Hello.
What makes her special is she is the better half of Neil's life. You know what? You should do this introduction, Neil. I am going to put you on the spot for this. Could you please introduce to us who this Alicia person is? Listen carefully, Alicia. See how he does. This is cruel of me, isn't it? Not really?
No, not really.
Okay, good. Go.
I feel like this. She's dying to get me on the spot and everything. But no, this is my wife, Alicia Robinson. We've been married for 21 years. She is my better half. She does have a degree in early childhood education and bachelor's in psychology. She's the main reason why our two boys, age 16 to 19, are the way that they are and how awesome they are.
Alive?
No, they're awesome.
Okay.
But yeah, they're alive.
She's the reason they're alive, Neil.
Yep. And now that they've kind of grown up and kind of doing their own thing now, she's turned her attention to art. You can check her out at purplelilyart.com. Amazing stuff that she's creating.
What? Where?
purplelilyart.com.
See, they say if you say it 3 times that people get it. So, Alicia, where is this?
purplelilyart.com.
See? All right, we work together.
But yeah, it's exciting. Everything failed today, and I asked her, I said, honey, do you want to do the show? You want to do it? And she hesitated. So as soon as she hesitated,
that was the window.
I had a chance. Because I've learned either she's going to do it or not. And if she doesn't say no, there's a chance.
Okay. So we nailed it.
So yeah, she's here today, and I'm excited to share the couch with her.
Yay.
This is fun. Yeah, absolutely. It's fun for you guys. We did. Everything failed. I was going to have my son on, and that didn't work out. And then John was sick. And then the backup, Miss Carrie, that's been on the show before, she was just got back into the town, and then Victoria had her childcare blow up at the last second. So it's been a pretty wild day, but we are going to get it going. We are going to ask you to subscribe. John wants you to give us 5 stars, not 3 stars, not 2 stars, not 4 stars. He gets
5.
really upset if we don't do the 5. Click the bell, notifications. Look, we do free show for you. Hopefully entertain a little bit, get you some good content about mental health and substance abuse. Your job is to kind of tell somebody, get a subscriber on YouTube Live, which we have a new subscriber.
Yay.
Welcome to Deborah Lewis, who is a new YouTube subscriber. Deborah, welcome aboard. And that just happened like right before the show, so that was kind of cool. This is the human emotional experience, which we do, Alicia and Deborah, to figure out together. And you're going to play the game today?
Okay, let's
All
do
right.
this.
All right, here we go. Anything else, by the way, in some way of introduction, seriously, that you'd like to know? You have the undergraduate in psychology, and what was the other degree? You got a couple?
Early childhood education, which is basically birth to kindergarten.
Yeah.
We talk about cognitive. I mean, basically, it's everything you need to know about a child's development from the time that they are born to the time that they go to kindergarten.
Yeah.
We talk about cognitive things. It's a small dive into psychology, even that early on. We talk about physical health and well-being of children. Yeah.
I'll tell you why
basically.
that's perfect, honestly, because the genesis of this particular show, this was like on the list of shows, like from the original list that I think I developed, which was it's one of the reasons why we've never redone a whole lot of content besides plan to redo contents of emotion-focused therapy and moral courage. I think there's and love and logic. But the genesis of this so long ago was my thinking about how frustrating it is that doctors in medical care tend to spend so little time through doctor-patient relationship now.
Yeah.
Like you go to a doctor's office, honestly, I'm going to go hang out with my guy, Dr. O'Leary, here in a week, in a month, and it's a full annual evaluation. And I will actually have a half an hour or so because he's an awesome clinician. But how often do you get any time with your doctor?
Not really. Not very much.
Right? And in psychiatry, we have like 5-minute med checks. That's about it. So the reason why it's so cool doing what you do is kids specifically and especially do not have cognitive ability that is developed. So they are just about pretty well 100% experiential. Would you agree?
Everything is a new experience until, I don't know. But once we get to a certain age, we get into our routines and new experiences happen very, very seldomly. And as children, their brains are just constantly firing with new experiences. And relationships, which are what we're talking about, are so important in that time because,
it's just an experience.
Yeah, it's new.
Like there's literally 2 pieces of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
This is the brain. I do this from a conference you see on the YouTube Live, right? If you peel your frontal cortex off, you got the emotion center literally on the stem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your spinal cord comes up, and on the stem of the brain is the emotion center. You know, the amygdala, what is it called? Hypothalamus, and all of that stuff, adrenal glands, and the frontal cortex is like the thinking, the cognition, the abstract reasoning. They don't have that yet.
Not yet.
Like it's not really even online.
Right. It's slowly developing with every little experience they have. So,
But this emotion center,
yes, is full on.
full on.
Yep.
So children that young, especially, that's why we can draw on your experience, are really getting into this powerful observation and full experience of just now, the moment.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It really is.
It is.
Yeah. So we'll weave that in. That's pretty cool. Neil, what are you thinking over there? We got Neil Robinson coming out behind the curtain for this particular episode.
I'm just gonna listen. It's just,
You are not capable. You can't do that.
I can try.
You'll add your 2 cents and then 30 cents and $1 after a while.
Yeah, probably. I like to hear myself talk.
So just for you, since we did that, I'll put you on the spot again. Since you did that, what relationship in your life had the most positive impact on your well-being? You can't say her.
I have to say her.
You can't say him, and he can't say you. Can we make that agreement? That's just too obvious.
I wasn't gonna say him. I'll share mine in a
What?
minute, though.
What?
You are a big, you are a big part of it, but I wasn't gonna say you.
You could say her, I guess, now that she's dissing. No, just kidding. All right, I need to butt out. What is the
After this, we're
most
gonna have
impactful
a couples therapy after this. Chris,
Clearly.
okay? I think we're gonna.
maybe so?
I mean, I have a buddy, Brian, that I do a lot of stuff with right now that has been really positive, as a business owner, as a friend, as someone who I only knew for a short time. Like my shortest job I ever had, I worked with him. And then after like 6 years of disconnect, we got connected again. I think he's really helped me the last 6 or 7 or 8 years, however long it's been. So that's been probably the biggest, most recent friend. And we have a really, really good bond. We've done a lot of hiking, rucking together. I think we've grown together. So that was probably the one person I can think of recently that really kind of stands out to me.
Perfect.
So,
well, I can make it. I'm looking forward to answering that because, I've talked about on the show. We've been having a major life development with Mom. So, my mom has been in a dementia care unit. I don't know if you know that actually. Yeah,
Neil's told me about it.
Yeah. So she's in a memory care dementia unit, which is just horrible. I mean, there's just nothing good about that. It's just horrible. But it has made me think a lot about her in so many different ways. And so when I tell people, about, my mom and all, and I'll say, it's tough because when we were kids, or I should speak just for myself, when I was a kid, going through the divorce situation as a kid with my family in the following years, nothing was okay. And she made everything okay. That's the way I like to think of her now, Yeah. So it's pretty special for me to answer that question, and that's in so many ways. Mom made everything okay when nothing seemed okay financially, and dealing with your own self-esteem. And as a matter of fact, everybody. I'm going to ramble on about my mom for a minute. She is awesome because I remember one particular time when I was going through all of that, my confidence was just wrecked. And I literally was like walking down a sidewalk, and my head was like down to the ground. It was like I was looking at the ground. And I was like, she must have clued into that. I don't remember being depressed per se, but you know what she did? She looked at me. She says, "Hey, did you see that girl back there?" And I was like, "No, I didn't see any. I don't know what you're talking about." She's like, "Well, she was checking you out." Of course, I know there probably was no girl there. I still didn't see what she was talking about. Maybe there was, maybe there wasn't, but you know what Mom was doing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was awesome.
That's awesome.
I don't know if I've hardly ever told that story. Now I just told it to the world.
Your
That's
mom,
a really
your mom was
fun-
your original wingman.
Yeah, man. She
Sometimes
was.
mom should be the wingman.
Yeah. Yeah. So you wouldn't answer if you want to, or if you. Well, you said you had an answer. Yeah. Who's the person
Maybe,
or a person?
was it 2 years ago when I met Hadley?
Don't ask me. I don't know.
I think it was 2 years ago. I don't know. We worked at Michael's. She came in, and it was like this immediate, magnetism between us. You have people that, you push them away and you just stay away from me. Her and I just immediately were drawn to each other. There was so much positive energy between the two of us, and we've slowly become more and more friends. And I mean, I'm not saying that I have ever really had a bad self-esteem in myself. I've always been the kind of person that's like, I know I'm beautiful. I don't care what you think, because it doesn't matter to me. If I
Right.
think I'm beautiful, it doesn't matter.
Okay. Awesome. I love that.
But there's a lot of times, especially when you hang out around women, and women know what I'm talking about. Some other women sometimes make you feel bad about yourself. They really do.
It's pretty snarky, isn't it?
They have a hard time of building up other women. And when I first met her, she was like, "Alicia, I love you, and I think you are so beautiful." And that's the first time a woman, other than
Yeah.
my mom or sister, has told me that. And I was just like, thank you, Hadley. Like, that lifted me up and built me up. And she's just such a special person to me. So, yeah.
I love that. Thank you for sharing, because that really is powerful. Pat McAfee show on ESPN. I love watching him. He's hyper as hell, but he's super funny. Great sports information. But he always says, say something nice to a friend, you might change their life.
Yeah.
That's his phrase. That's his shtick. And and he just throws it out there really nice and hyper like he does. Say something nice to a friend, you might change their life. And that's, you never know. And because that is a very powerful, even more than my mom, I would say, moment, right? Yeah. Mom had more relationship with us, but that's a good moment.
It was a good moment. It was a very good moment.
I love that. That's really neat. This is an interesting show topic, I think, because I don't know that people think about this dynamic a whole lot or realize truly, just like that moment at Hobby Lobby, the indelible, powerful impact.
Michaels. Don't say Hobby Lobby. It was Michaels.
That is bad.
Not Hobby Lobby.
Hobby Lobby's the competitor for Michelangelo's.
Michaels.
Okay, Michaels. Thank you, Neil, for saving me there. Now I lost my train of thought.
Sorry, I know. I killed the moment.
The moment in Michaels is something, like I said, the power in relationships I don't think people realize, thus the genesis of doctors evaluating. And by the way, this show has a lot of show notes on it. For whatever reason, I don't know. There was just, I think it was a weird topic, not exactly about therapy per se, but the power of what we try to foster and facilitate. So there's a lot of different references I put in here for this. But, being able to enjoy that powerful moment, and things like with my mom and things like with your friend Rucking, this is what doctors are studying. They're realizing, like, you don't have any time with the patient anymore. And that there's a lot of reasons. Look, don't hold me to this, but there are a lot of reasons why our healthcare has gone down. But we are, like, do you know, we were talking about it at a lunch yesterday for a men's conference we're going to. Our life expectancy as Americans has actually gone down. Yeah. Crazy, if you ask me. Like, I know we're all around the world, so great, you guys have better statistics than us around the world. What is that, And I think there are multiple reasons for that. This being, I don't know, it seems to me a good, explanation as an important part of that whole dynamic. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Doctors are just looking for those surface layer symptoms that they can, Band-Aid, I guess. And if you took more time to talk to them and discuss with them, then maybe you're seeing that what they're presenting as a symptom actually is a symptom of something else that's actually more pressing, and it's not really, it's just, they are missing a lot, I think, by not communicating.
More so than that, or that also as well, you may find more data, you may find more information. You're definitely going to get more conversation if you spend time. But I mean, just so far as literally sitting in the room with a doctor that you trust.
Well, that is hard too. Yeah.
Right.
Because I just had this discussion with Neil. It had been a while since I had gone to doctors, and I went back to the doctor that I had seen, I don't know, probably been 5 years. I don't remember. And it was very, outside of the fact that when I went the first time, she diagnosed me with hypothyroidism, which I'm not doing. I'm doing my own way of handling it instead of taking the medication. That's for a different topic.
Gotcha.
We're not going to talk about that. But I told her, I said, I don't want to take the medication. I'm going to change my diet. I'm going to work out. We're going to, I'm going to do different things before this. But she just did one blood test and said I have thyroid problems.
Okay.
And it was like, that's really not enough to tell me what's going on, because maybe my hormones were just different that day.
Right.
And
don't get me started on the
Oh, I
endocrine
know.
system.
We talk about hormones all the time.
Do you?
Because I am in the perimenopausal state right now.
Oh, joy. Good for you.
And so, yeah, hormones are crazy. But thinking about the fact that she was okay with that.
Actually, can I just comment on that
yes,
moment?
Yes, go ahead.
I love the fact that we can actually interact with that. About 10 years ago, there would have been no way I would have taken that leap. So thankfully, it's so much better.
It is better.
Yeah,
no, absolutely.
Yeah. And good timing for you, I guess.
But so, and I was thinking, like, I don't know what to trust anymore because she's not going to give me any other way other
There's
than
a
the
word.
medicine, Not that I don't trust her, but she also only knows what they taught her in medical school.
Right.
And are they allowed to go outside of that? It's a big, complicated mess right now.
So you
I
used one
think.
of the words: trust, intimacy, and compassion are tools for medicine,
They should be.
right?
Mhm.
Neil, where's your head at? You're quiet over there. You said you were just going to listen. You're actually doing that. I need to pull you in. I won't let that.
Well, it goes back to what we've talked about in previous shows, the isolation of our society, right? You think about those things where, people don't have intimacy, compassion, like the dehumanizing of everyone is becoming harder and harder, right?
Yeah.
You're not looking at what the person really needs. They're looking at symptoms and give you medication for it. They're not really looking at maybe instead of, maybe you don't have anxiety. Maybe you just need to talk to someone, right? Maybe it's not depression. Maybe you just need connection. Like, those are those things they just get overlooked. And I think part of the issue is today's society, it's all about, what do I want? And I don't care about how I can help someone, or I don't want to ask for help. And like, it really is, our American society we're very isolated. It goes back to the idea of front porch society versus a back porch society.
And I don't know. I want to say, I'm not an expert on cultures around the world, but honestly, I put a lot onto the social media kind of dynamics and the way that we're more connected in ways that we never dreamed possible, but feeling less connected than we ever have, I suspect, in the history of man. Think about that, Alicia. That's such a disparity of what I just said.
Yeah. I don't know.
It almost doesn't seem possible.
I know. It's a weird concept to think about. My friend, like the whole dating app thing,
Oh gosh, yes.
You can't even meet somebody in person anymore. You can. I'm sure you can. There are ways, but we've been married for 21 years, and the idea of if anything ever happened to him, I'm like, what the heck would I do?
It's rough out there, they tell me. Yeah.
I know.
It's totally different.
Yeah.
And you do swipe, app, switch to another app, switch to another Facebook. It's a lot. Think about those words though for a minute with me: intimacy, trust, compassion. Like, what happens truly in relationships? You talk about reducing stress and depression and anxiety. Like, this is the outcome, and it's literally just through relating to people, just through, like, think about how you feel when you receive compassion from somebody. When you receive, you received a wonderfully affirming compliment, or trust. Like, if I'm with you, Neil, and I know you got my back, and I got my back, our 6 is protected. What does that do to your chemicals in your body, to your emotions? What does that do literally to the inflammation that you have in your heart chamber? Like, that's how dynamic this can be.
Yeah. It's huge with children, especially because when you have kids who do not feel safe at home and they have to find a place to feel safe, you notice the difference as soon as they walk in somewhere where they feel safe. It is a physical change in their appearance, the way they behave, the foods they eat. Like, it's a big difference when they feel safe.
And the challenge to be in that space in the moment, because it takes more to feel safe. Do you know what my brain just did listening to you? On ropes courses.
Yeah.
Okay. These are outdoor activities that people, will engage in, like for group dynamics, companies will come in or whatever. So therapy people will engage and lead these programs. They're whole day programs, essentially. Well, I was talking to one of these ropes course people, which has always been an interest of mine because I like being outdoors and all. And he described for me what he observes. And there's so many observations. Yeah. For instance, a lot of the activities involve physical touch, right? So I'm not going to reach across the room and try to grab your hand. But when Neil and I are grabbing hands, right, if you get a shake like this and a light barely touching, not wanting to do that, that person clues into, oh, we have sexual abuse quite likely here. Because the other way is we can squeeze, bam, there's a tight grasp, a full grasp, we're connected, we're not worried about that. That is because of what your experiences are. So do you have the ability to feel safe? Do you have the ability to engage? Do you have the willingness to be open? Then you get those benefits. But to your point, it can also be closed even from the get-go.
Yeah.
And that can be literally observed. It's powerful stuff going on, because now we could talk about physical touch, hugging, handshaking, like, when's the last time you went into a doctor's office and greeted a nurse or anybody with a hug? I would imagine.
Definitely not since COVID.
Right? I'm actually, that was a fresh thought in the real moment. I'm trying to think of how often that's happened in my life. Like, I think it's true to say that happened before. What do y'all remember? Is that?
I don't remember ever being hugged, but I'm sure in small communities that's how they would.
Well, I'm from West Virginia, yeah.
Right. So, because, I mean, you have one doctor's office in a very small community. I'm sure you know everybody and they would hug. But in a bigger, because Hickory was a bigger place and my doctor saw a lot of patients. So I don't think that, or any of the nurses would ever do that. I don't remember that.
See, I go back a little ways, and I'm pretty sure that was a thing. There'd be greetings. There's certainly more handshakes and pre-COVID fears of, weren't there. But physical touch, literally heals. What was that movie, Neil? Robin Williams was in Patch Adams. You ever see Patch Adams?
Great movie.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
What do you remember from Patch Adams, and what was his attitude about all of this?
You might know better than I.
I know that with Patch Adams, he wanted people to laugh because he totally saw laughter as a form of medicine, and he would make his patients laugh. And, he would do the magic tricks where he was like pulling things behind his ear, stuff like that, which could go into physical touch. But yeah, I mean, it was very positive, laughing environment.
Yeah, it was more about it was about the relationships,
building the trust
Exactly.
and the intimacy with your patients.
Yeah, and having compassion for them and compassion for all the people that were around them, the other patients. Like, it was really, when you think about the little hospital he made, it was like more of a communal house more than it was a clinical office, right? It was a lot different dynamic than what you would see from at the big hospital that didn't like him, right? So,
and they didn't like him because he stamped out he didn't subscribe to the pre-prescribed, formal, distant, authoritative kind of style that the medical profession has had, which does go back for a long time. But here's a different question. So you haven't been hugged, Alicia, in a doctor's office. How many times do you really laugh? Do you really whoop it up? I mean, is there many laughing events in doctor's offices
not
anymore?
in mine. In the boys' doctor's office,
pediatrics.
He's really good. He talks to them about Pokemon and all the games that they play, and they laugh and they enjoy it. He's very good with the kids.
Yeah, love
but
that.
in an adult doctor's office,
why not? You don't laugh anymore. I can tell you used to all the time. It was, somebody's going to crack a joke.
I mean, you think about it, now with doctors, you get 15 minutes with the patient. Usually you're running behind because of all the other stuff. The doctor's too stressed to probably crack a joke, right?
Right.
And you think, and then you're sitting there waiting. If they're late, then now you get irritated. That's not an atmosphere that's going to spawn any healthy relationships or jokes or humor, right?
Or be conducive of healing.
Yeah, exactly.
In a doctor's office, we are going to decrease the healing effects. Think about that. Seriously, like, I don't know, I'm starting to get upset. I'm starting to get bothered by this topic here today. Because honestly, if you want to get a little sciencey on this, what ends up happening when you have a hug, receive a hug or give a hug, have a compliment or a moment in Michael's or a trail. I love being on a trail. And honestly, my mom has dementia, going back to all of our original question answers. I love those moments when I get to see her. I value these pictures like tremendously when I do get to hug her or whatever. Like, I am soaking all of that in because it decreases cortisol. Mm-hmm. It decreases your body's reactions that have stress hormones, adrenaline. You ever hear that dog's best friend or man's best friend, is your dog, and how petting a dog. Don't they have statistics that say that, you live longer, you reduce your stress and all that kind of reality?
Yeah.
It's with a dog. Think about how more powerful that is with another human.
Yeah. Well, this goes back to the other part. Social media, online stimulations, all of that stuff, it increases your dopamine. When you're in a constant state of dopamine production, it increases your cortisol. So now you have this double whammy over here, being isolated in social media with technology, all those things, but then you're not getting the physical touch to help bring you back down, right?
Right.
There's this,
Wow.
and so you talk about how everything's tied together in society, and you know, we're dying because, one, we're either killing ourselves or we're isolating ourselves, and we don't actually take the time to decrease cortisol, because high cortisol and long-term exposure tears your body down.
Like, I don't know. I'm not an expert on it. I have heard this. Do you guys know much about it? I don't know if you're into food or, you know, the real effects of that. I just want to go into that deeper. Do you have...
Yeah.
Say a little more about that then.
Well, when you look at your body's the good chemicals versus the bad chemicals, like we know Robert in our group does the whole testosterone stuff with his clinic and stuff like that. And the one thing you have to look at it from those pieces is your body has to be receptive of the good hormones. And cortisol is one of those hormones that are there for fight or flight. But the problem is it's designed to be there and then go away.
Right.
If you don't do anything to get rid of cortisol, and there's a lot of food that we eat that keeps our cortisol up or increases it. So changing your diet, which helps you then reduce your cortisol, then allows your body to produce and absorb things like testosterone and those types of things that we all need to handle. So our diet, to go with our behaviors of social media, fluctuates that cortisol level, which means, once again, how stressed are you? How fast can you recover? You know, can you go from a bad situation to a good situation because your cortisol levels are adjusted and balanced, right? So it's a huge thing that I think people just don't understand. And with like processed foods and all that other stuff that most people ingest, it just kills your body and it just increases cortisol and it blocks you from the good chemicals.
I feel like our knowledge of the endocrine system and dietetics and minerals, food, diet, all of that is just, this is the next bastion of science. Like, a lot of mental health and a whole lot of medical, I think, as well, is going to be figured out when we get our little hands and fingers and figure out these systems. Because I'm just listening to you and I was thinking, like, yeah, like that is really amazing on a chronic level. What are you doing? We know about the amygdala and fight or flight. What are you doing? What is your body going to feel like if you're in a chronic state of that? Because that's, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, you know, like with my kids, because now they're playing these like horror video games. You know, my 9-year-old nephew is doing it, right? They're not getting scared. They're not jumping at these things that should be scaring them.
Are they not?
No, not really.
Really?
Because they're constantly have their hormone. That's
That's fascinating.
Yeah, and so that might scare them, and they might like shake a little, but it's not, because you know when you used to go to a movie and you would watch a horror movie and it would
startled
you know,
out.
would start,
out of my
and then
chair.
you would scream. You know, no, it's like this little shake, and they're like, oh, and it's slowly getting where they react less
Desensitized.
and less
I
and
haven't
less.
noticed that at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, 100%. Just think about what our kids were like when they first
Dang.
started some of those games and how I could walk up and be like, and they'd like, but now it's like, oh, hey, you know, it's different.
Well, and then think about when you're constantly at that level all the time, and then finally you stop being at that level, and you're like, I don't know how I feel now.
But you crash.
Because you feel depleted,
Even
right?
even your voice tone and your shoulders and everything as you just did that, it's like, whoosh.
You would feel depleted. So if now you stop having all these hormone levels, they're going to start thinking they're depressed because they don't have that constant, you know. I mean, I don't know. This is just a thing that I am thinking.
And honestly, there are elements of depression there. I mean, that is the way that you experience depression.
Yeah. And then you just...
It's almost a little mini depression trigger.
And you would
Never
just
thought of it that
seriously
way, but-
think that after all these increased levels of hormones, now you're like, oh, I'm numb now. Instead of being numb, you're just balancing out.
How many systems in our body, Neil, do you think cortisol affects? High levels, low levels, cortisol is, I mean, that goes a lot of places.
Yeah, it's your entire body because everything gets
Yeah.
absorbed. I mean, it's huge. I mean, like I said, you look at if cortisol is blocking you from absorbing certain things or certain minerals or certain pieces, it's going to affect your entire body system, your digestion, your gut health, your everything. I mean, it really does affect all the different pieces. Like I said, one thing with cortisol is it blocks your testosterone absorption. Okay, well, guys need that to, make them assertive, aggressive, or whatever you want to say, give them more confidence. There's a lot of stuff tied to
Have
testosterone.
your blood work correctly, have it pumped correctly, have the pressure right, have the insulin be, all of that.
Yeah, and I think there's even things where like even a extended cortisol like does issues where it physically affects your body, not even hormonal, which could be because of the lack of certain types of hormones or blockage. There's a lot of negative impact on your body. Like I said, if you're always stressed, how many people do you see that they're always stressed and they always look worn down? If they try to work out, they never recover, or their workout's not the same way, right? It affects your entire systems, and it's kind of crazy what it does to you.
So you've gotten, you, the listener, has gotten a little bit here in the last 5-10 minutes, honestly, a good bit of a good bit of the geeky, weird science stuff behind the phrases that you've probably heard, like dog owners have a longer life. Your mortality rate is decreased, when you have healthy relationship, and these notions, the things that you've heard, the doctors, the conversation about doctors that we've had, you probably have thought about that before. There's a lot that goes into the biology of it, and I guess we're not, Neil, you're probably the smartest one, besides you, Alicia. I can't contribute much higher than that because it's so dynamic. And so thank you. That was well done, because it affects all of these things, in way of immune systems, and like I said, the cardiac issue, cardio as well with lungs. I bet it's a far-ranging impact simply by feeling stressed. Powerful, and human relationships, when going well, contribute to having less stress.
Have you heard the thing lately where they talk about length of hugs and length of kisses?
No.
They've actually talked about that lately, where like if you're going to hug someone, it's like they say 30 seconds. And if you really want to get a good kiss, like 6 seconds of actual contact. There's something about going through that part of it, like because you're letting your body actually engage in those situations, right? So instead of just, and this is something her and I'm not a real hugger. Like that's one of those things, I hug for greeting, but I don't really hug. And so that's something her and I have, like, she's like, I want to hug. Like try to get away. She's like, no, I'm not done.
Pop a 1.5er.
Yeah. And so, but no, and that's
pushing it up to 3 seconds maybe in the goal.
And so, but that's really important with the touch, right?
Well, women
100%.
Women in particular need more hugs and more physical contact than men. And one of the videos,
I think I want to push back at that.
One of the videos that I saw recently, where they were doing a study in women's health, talked about how women need, like, I think it was 5 to 7 good hugs a day, where men can get around like 3 to 5. That was just that one study. Now, I didn't fully see where he got his information from.
Yeah, we're not going down the rabbit hole of his stuff.
But I'm just saying that's what this one guy presented with his information. And he doesn't need hugs. I mean, like this, he's good.
I'm good.
Leave me alone.
Not enough touch.
And now with my youngest son, he's like that too. And I'm like, no, I need a hug right now. Give me a hug.
And one that's got to last 4 seconds.
It has to last.
Alicia, I think that there's a lot there in that there's love languages, the way that we're wired. I know my older son, he has zero desire to be touched. But my younger son, I mean, he's been, we've had a delightful month. He's in town. My little boy's home. He's home from Japan. He's deployed in the military. He's in the Navy. So, I mean, and he's all the time touching me. He wants to connect. I can tell. And he touches me on my shoulder. He touches me on my leg. He kind of, daps me up. He always wants to handshake, and, he wants to hug kind of as well. So I think that I'd be curious. I mean, I think it's really like people that are connecting and want to connect.
I mean, and
they get comfort from that.
That plays a big part in it. Because I have friends that don't want to touch, and that are female that don't want to touch. But then when you do give them a genuine hug, you can tell there's a difference in their energy levels. There's
Absolutely.
more energy.
It's a perk.
I mean,
it's a dopamine hit.
It is.
But so is quality time.
Yeah, it is.
So is, Neil, I don't know what your love languages are or how you engage, but if I give you a compliment and we develop a true trust in the moment, maybe you just fell off the rock and I, carried you down off the trail. I could do that. Don't think I can't. I saw that look, Alicia. You saw that look, didn't you? He's like, I would be screwed on the trail, Chris.
No, it was more. I'm usually the more sure-footed person, so the fact that I would be the one that fall off the rock would be kind of, would it be me? But no, I think you could definitely carry me.
Yeah, and what an awesome experience that is the point, because that's different than a hug. It's touching, but it's just trust. It's bonding. It's being a part of a pack, being a part of a group. You know, we have some knowledge about this in science, and it really is like the same stuff that if you have a dog and you pet a dog, somewhat you get these benefits: improved life expectancy, heart health, blood pressure, decreased stress, anxiety, and depression. Literally, your white blood cells with immune health work better, gut health. That's one of my big ones. When I'm stressed, you know, I feel it in my gut. And when somebody gives me a compassionate approach, or, you know, I can literally take a breath and clear all that tension out, and it leaves my gut is healthier, right? Sleep is another big thing. Literally your experience of pain. You know, I was thinking about this as you guys were talking. It's well known in the psychology fields, you know, about you know, the connections that we have and how people kind of connect in all these different ways that we've talked about, and the positive impacts, such that there's kinetic energy. So I don't have time, I think, because we've got some things we want to get to, or that I want to get to. But if I were to do this activity with Alicia, it freaks me out every time I've done it in sessions. I'll say to hold your arm out, and I'll try to push your arm down, and I'll feel the strength, and you'll feel that, you know, you're pretty strong and you can hold it. And I'll ask you to keep your arm out, and I'll say 5 bad things about yourself, right?
Yeah.
And have you ever heard of
I've
this?
seen that, yeah.
And what happens?
Did immediately, yeah. Because their energy drops.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
If you say 5 positive things about yourself, then what happens when I try to put downward pressure on your arm, and you're trying to hold it there?
You're at least keeping it steady, or if not
It's
raising it.
solid.
Yeah, it's solid, yeah.
It is markedly different. You ever hear that, Neil?
No.
That's a true thing. We'll do it after the show. I always, every time I do it in sessions, I've pulled that out of my tool bag. I'm always scared, like, that it's not going to work. Because it seems so creepy. Like, how would this work? You're just saying something. You're using words. But it really correlates to, like, muscle strength. It's crazy. Trips me out. So, key ingredients, trust, honesty, compassion, empathy, you know, being able to put yourself in the other person's shoes, you know, and then we get to these really cool things. Neil, what do you know about mirror neurons? We've alluded to them on the show.
Have you?
Yeah, I think we have.
I don't know anything about them, so
Yeah?
I'm really intrigued by this section.
I am too, and I don't think I know enough. Have you ever heard of this before?
Mm-mm.
There are literally, okay. So I've been around the block for a minute. You know, I say on the show, you know, I've been doing this since '95 in one form or another. So I back to the 1900s, Alicia. That's when I started. The 1900s. I didn't hear of anything about any of this until much more recently, in the last 5, maybe 10 years. I hear of this thing called mirror neurons. Like, literally, we have in our body ways that we reflect, that we experience common experiences. Like, you know what I'd really like some really, really, really smart person to tell me? How on earth ants can coordinate finding the one little sugar spot in the yard half a mile away, and they all know it. Right?
Yeah.
Or birds, how they can fly. And you ever seen a flock of birds all together, like 20, 30 birds, and all of a sudden, boom, they turn on a dime. Do you ever see that in the sky? You ever pay attention?
Mm-hmm.
How does that happen without them hitting each other?
You know, I knew at one point in time because I saw I saw a whole like documentary thing on it, and I do not remember the explanation for that now, but I did see something about it. Yeah.
Or the big school of fish that make the bigger thing, like,
Right.
Yeah, it's so cool. Right?
That's 1,000 little fish, and they don't touch each other. But yet, they'll dart off into the left or to the right. They all somehow know what's going on. Don't you know when you walk into the room, when you see Neil, You know, or when Neil, you come home from where? Who comes home? I guess you come home
Nobody.
from the store.
We
Yeah, you
both
guys
work
from home.
I was doing that. I was like, wait a minute, this isn't working out. You're screwing up, Chris.
We see each other all the time.
Oh my God.
When I get home from the podcast.
Okay. When you come out of the home, finally, Neil, if you didn't catch all that listening, they both kind of work out of the house. So that my little example was blowing up and we all knew it in real time. So if he comes home from the podcast and he's got that look on his face, can you tell where he's at?
Yes. I know all the time where he is.
You know?
Yeah.
And you see her vibe when she comes in the room, you know, and we get this idea of being in the other person's head, but nobody is, you can't be, but you get these cues.
Yeah.
All of this has to do with mirroring neurons, which ChatGPT had this. So this is really from ChatGPT. Have y'all started using that? I know you have.
I refuse to.
You refuse to?
Yes, I do.
Alicia.
I have my own brain. I don't need somebody to come up with something for me.
Oh, baby girl. It is have you ever said, hey, Siri, what did the Pittsburgh Pirates do last night?
No, I told Siri to...
Oh, we had a conversation about
Never mind. I'm not going to say that on your podcast.
You can say anything you want to. She and Siri had a battle. We actually talked about this. All right, this is tanking as well, Alicia. Just play along, I guess.
Sorry.
ChatGPT is amazing.
It's
you
great.
will use ChatGPT.
Great.
I'm telling you. It is amazing. So these are the large language models, and I actually am just pointing this out because this is not my data, not my information. I actually just popped a quick quote, and this is what it came up. Because such a fascinating thing. But I have trusted ChatGPT. It is great information. It's like a Google search on steroids, right? So this is their description. Mirror neurons are specialized brain cells that fire both when we perform an action and we observe someone else performing the same action. Now, I hadn't heard mirroring neurons being described that way before. So that was really kind of fascinating that I have brain cells that when I cross my leg like this, I experience what I experienced, and then I observed you, Neil, doing the same thing, and like, wow, those same specialized brain functions are firing so that we are connecting in our common understanding. Isn't that wild?
It is cool. It's very cool. Now, going back to the time you said, because when you read the notes, it said they were first discovered in the early 90s.
Yeah,
I see that. In the 1900s, as you stated a second ago, right?
1900s.
But I think that's what's kind of fascinating. Like when you talk about early discovery stuff, we're learning so much about ourselves. Like we've talked about the history of stuff where like some of the stuff we talk about menopause and stuff, it's like they didn't start really talking about that till like the 60s and 70s. Like
100%.
a lot of stuff we're
brand new.
so early
Very new.
in the history of man. Like we're now just so it's really cool
It's
how
only 50 years
it's
ago.
how amazing we are as humans and as like the bodies we have, and it's
Yeah.
so cool what we can do and what we're capable of.
It really is. And I see that was research with monkeys in the 90s. And then evidence shows that humans have them too. I think that we may have found this out in the 90s, but I'm telling you, I have heard nothing of this topic, through the 90s, the 2000s, the 10s, only, I'll give it maybe 15 years.
I think if you look at it from a sales and marketing perspective, that's I think where they hinted some of the mirror neurons, because they talk about you do certain things to get people to like you. There's certain behaviors you do, the way that you close your arms versus have them wide open, the way you interact. If you look at it from a sales and marketing logic,
Absolutely.
they probably actually cover more of the mirroring neurons than probably the psychological side, because of it's all about likability. It's all about making the sales, right?
can
You
see
think
that.
about those. There's some book, I can't think of what it's called, like psychoanalytics or something. I don't know. It's something most marketing people or salespeople will read. And there's something about the human nature and the connections and doing certain behaviors. And like I said, crossing the feet, like if you mirror someone, it makes them more comfortable with you.
And you know what a big one is? Yawning. Right?
Yes. Yawning's a big one.
As a matter of fact, I think if I was just listening to you and I remembered that, I feel like that's where this research interest, particularly in humans, started.
Why one person yawns and then everyone else does. I think we were at
Absolutely.
dinner one time with my stepmom, and I started yawning acting, and she started to yawn, and like it was like I could do it repeatedly over and over again. It was like really funny, but it was just yawning's a great example of that because everyone relates to it.
You know what? There's so many examples. This was terrible. I had a buddy of mine that was taking his pregnant wife, Alicia, who had just gave birth to a newborn. And if you mimic crying in a car, they were totally messing with her because she would lactate. She was just wet everywhere. She was like horrible. But the guys were just sitting there laughing their tail ends off.
Thank
you know,
goodness that didn't happen to me. Never.
It never happened.
Oh, that would have
Thank
been way
goodness.
too much ammunition for me if I had known that one because I'm mean like that. But that's okay.
I know.
But it never happened anyway. Anyway.
It could have. And I would wonder, honestly, though, is mirroring neurons a part of that process? Really, there's lots of different examples we might come up with. So mirror neurons are thought to be the biological foundation for. That's the way that was written. So do we know, or is it just thought to be? But anyway, the biological foundation for empathy, when you empathize with each other, when you're socially connected, allowing intuition to occur, sports, coordination of play by play probably is a big thing there. Learning through imitation. So we talked about kids. Oh my gosh, their mirroring neurons must be on fire when they were that age, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially when the adult says something bad, they're gonna mirror it immediately.
100%.
Well, if
Fight or flight,
if
man.
a kid reaches over and smacks another kid, they're all going to start hitting each other. It just
It's-
happens.
Right?
It does.
Food fight?
Yeah.
Food fight?
Yeah.
Wow. Emotional contagion. Emotions can spread between people like ripples. This is partly thanks to the mirroring neurons. So again, chat was talking about this. And there's all these simple examples that we have in our day-to-day life. So how mirror neurons help us heal in relationships? Validation and emotional safety. When someone is attuned to us, mirroring our emotions, body language, or tone, it sends a powerful signal of safety and understanding. This is a fancy word, co-regulation. Okay? That means you're regulating your emotion, Neil, and I am regulating kind of with you when we have a heavy topic, say in a therapy session. Modeling new patterns, being in healthy, supportive relationships. Think about training your kids. Do you do that by teaching them and yelling at them and spanking at them? Or do you really demonstrate? Because they're watching you, Mom, talk to Dad when you're in an argument. Mm-hmm. How does this go? Right? Mm-hmm. So, look, I oftentimes, for young therapists, if you're a young therapist listening to this and picking up on this, I don't think we realize in our field even, particularly when we're younger, the sheer power of sitting down with another person whom you are giving your eye contact, your open body posture, follow-up questions based on what that person said, simple reflection. That's a very simple therapy tactic. That is a conversation unlike anything this person who's in an initial appointment with a therapist has ever experienced before. Isn't that wild? Mm-hmm. And the power of that, because therapists are weird. You're going to give me $80 and I just listened to you. You literally wrote me a check and you handed it across the room. That first time that happens, that's weird. Of course, it's probably more than $80 nowadays. That was a long time ago.
And the
$280.
in the 1900s.
Yeah. Right. No, but that feels weird when you're a young therapist doing that. But understand that is worth $1,280 for somebody who's experienced the opposite.
Well, you should be like that in your relationships with your partner, with your husband, with your wife, with your children. You should be always open and responsive in that way, making eye contact, listening to them. If they tell you something, rewording it so they know that you're hearing them. These all build trust in your relationships. And I did that a lot with my children. We sat down and had conversations where they would talk to me and they knew I was listening because of all the things that you just talked about. We've had conversations like that too. So you want to build relationships? That's what you should be doing when you're talking to people.
It kind of comes down to time. It literally shapes your brain's wiring. It literally shapes the neurological functioning of your brain. It formulates your body's moment-to-moment chemical reaction. And if that's lovely oxytocin that makes you feel in love and floaty, or if that's cortisone, adrenaline that makes you run and punch harder and like see clearer to save your life. That is a drain, but it's a powerful lift off. It's wild simply by a hug. So Neil, yeah, pump up those hugs by more than 4 degrees because 2 minutes doesn't get it done.
Well, so here's an interesting thought I was thinking of. Teletherapy, right? I know
Yeah.
it with COVID and all that, you've been doing more.
Oh boy.
When it comes to mirroring neurons, which is an interesting dynamic, how much does the disconnection of not being in that room with that person, how much does that, because I mean, this is going to sound weird, but like her and we've been married long enough, we have some pretty good connections sometimes. And
Yeah.
we were playing a game, I don't remember what it was, some game, and she looked at the card and was looking at it. And I always get like, okay, here's what it is. I kind of get an idea whatever it is. And so she, at some point during the game, she'd look at it, but then she'd think of something different. And my brain just shut down and I couldn't solve the riddle or solve the problems anymore. So the question is, it's a really weird thing. But the question is, once again, mirroring neurons. How much of it that is based on actual physical distance and how much of it is just seeing the other person? So when you do a therapy session through like a Zoom or whatever you want to say, are you really getting the entire benefit of a therapy session because you don't have that physical?
This totally needs study. And what I think would find out is just probably, I mean, I've never thought about this before. It's off the cuff, but probably why I've always landed on, there being best practice face-to-face in real time in the room. And then there's a step down, but still highly quality is the video conferencing. I used to do it with Skype back in the days with Skype. You should see his face on the YouTube live. He doesn't like Skype. He just scowled at me because it's so old.
It's finally getting decommissioned.
Right. It is finally getting decommissioned.
I think my understanding is Microsoft's finally
I didn't know that. That's a sad day. I love Skype. But nevertheless, I wouldn't do video or telephone sessions. I would stop at video. COVID actually taught me that it's another little step down from video, but it's still very, very effective to have a telephonic therapy intervention. However, again, best practice. And I'm talking about this with my clinicians, around the country, honestly, at a presentation. And so it's really cool to get that. And people are kind of, they're bought into doing this teleconferencing stuff. They enjoy it. It's convenient. It's very good. It has its place. But by golly, I make the deadpan statement that that's not best practice.
It makes me wonder, once again, I think people like it because of that
It's convenient.
Technology disconnect too. You don't feel that pressure. When you're talking to someone face to face and you're saying stuff that makes you vulnerable, it's a lot different when you're on a Zoom call. You don't have that presence of how do I feel talking to them? There's a safety net that I don't know if that's a benefit because you're saying stuff you normally wouldn't say. But then also the other part is like you're not really getting the whole effect of like, if I say this and the therapist knows it's bad, I'm not really going to sense what happens or what their reaction is. So I think there's something in there that you might get more people opening up because of that disconnect. But I also think sometimes you're missing out on some of those connections. So when I say, I am really having a really, really bad day and the therapist sympathizes and has empathy with me and I feel that sympathy, I'm not getting that healing benefit coming from someone actually cares about me and that compassion versus just looking at it on a screen. There's a huge disconnect.
I think what we would find, though, Neil, is that's why I went into that and then didn't finish the thought. Face-to-face, little step-down video conferencing, and then another little step-down to telephone. Because I think what studies would find is that there's more of these neurons that are firing in face-to-face because you have the verbal, nonverbal much more activated because there's just so much in a physical touch, actual physical touch, which you can't do on video conference. But you can see and you can mirror. And if I smile on video conferencing, chances are the other person's going to smile also. Mm-hmm. And even on the phone, we are so perceptive, human beings are. You notice when I say, hey, what's up, Neil? Versus, hey, what's up, Neil?
You can hear it. Your tone of voice, your exclamation. There's a definite, because you have vibrations and energy in the way you talk, and people are going to pick up on that. it's just, it is different, and you do have to focus in with your other senses in that sense, because
But it's so much more when you're live.
absolutely,
When you're live in the room.
absolutely.
Your eyes are
Yeah.
designed to work that way. High def isn't high def.
Yeah.
The best high def there is. Will we get to a place, Neil, with computers and technology advancing? Gosh, I don't know. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, we watch. There's a show on Amazon called Upload, and they have this thing where they take, when people are about to die, they can upload their consciousness to.
Oh yeah, the movie. What's that called? It's a terribly violent movie. I'll think of it.
But this is a TV show, and so the whole thing is this guy is about to die. Supposedly, they upload his consciousness. We'll come to find out there's a conspiracy, but there's this whole business of a virtual world that people live in. It's just their conscience.
Yep.
And as part of this, they have these suits that
Crazy.
you can wear and go visit people, and then you can actually get the sensation of hugging your dead spouse because their consciousness is up. But are we really ever gonna get there? I don't know. That's just really creepy. But
I mean, it's terribly creepy.
it is. But that's that's that.
But that's what we're trying to do, and we know that is sort of replicatable. And even then, I would say our systems are so. I'm going to say sensitive, but what I mean by that is so responsive is a better word to the environment, like putting stuff out or bringing stuff in. And we're not even talking about things like extrasensory perception and telepathy and things that you may or may not buy and believe, but like there's certainly some energy, and you can viscerally sense somebody's energy when they're coming in to your space. And all of this is all a part of that. We need to wind in a little bit. How do we cultivate these bonds? If we like them and want them, I would say be aware of like our friendship shows that we've done shows on, because I've talked about like how do you be purposeful about make friends? What do you do, in that area of life? Because people are, they struggle to know, but prioritizing reciprocation. I can't say how important that is when you're actively building a relationship. You can't be, the one. Sometimes I have my clients all the time, like with codependence, they're in the giving role, they're not in a receiving role, or you're really kind of in an addiction setting, and the person's egocentric and just absolutely consumed by themselves, and they just strip all of the energy from the entire house, so they're into receiving. Or people now, the kids call it, what do they call it? Vampire, right? You have that vampire energy where you're just sucking the life out of people around you. Yeah. So being aware of when that's happening, reciprocal support and listening and connecting are what we're after. Affectionate behavior, like we were talking about that, like be purposeful. Some people in their lives, they're used to like nothing but critical based interaction with primary people in their life, such as a parent, and they're not really open to the affectionate, like I said. I actually had a therapist, I like to pick on him, early in my career, early, way long ago, refused to shake somebody's hand or touch of any kind. Was like, okay, that's weird, dude, right? But there's things, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with him, although it was a little different. Did I say that out loud? I did, didn't I? Oh, well.
I didn't hear anything.
It's out there. We can play it back. and then self-awareness and empathy and asking open-ended questions, making connections, validating, like you said, Alicia, I think. These are some real-life things. And maybe now listening to this episode, you can kind of get an understanding of like, wow, this really makes an impact on somebody when you do it.
I think what's great about this show, because I was thinking about this early on, we've done so many shows about critical people, codependency, like all of the negative relationships we have and how much they can hurt you. How like what you
I didn't go there.
It's so great.
It's right.
So refreshing to see the other way, because once again, just as powerful relationships are at tearing someone down,
right, they're
just as powerful to build someone back up. And I think that's what I want to take away from this show is like relationships are great, especially if they're healthy relationships. And I think it's so important. And that's why I was saying about this early on. Like we've had all these shows about like growing up with a critical parent or cynical nature, or like, how these things do. Like, so it's great to finally hit the other side and be like, yeah, for all the bad, there are good relationships that, as you stated in the title, relationships can heal.
Love that.
And I think it's great that we're talking about this.
So you can't judge yourself on the shrink wrap up, but Alicia, we all do a shrink wrap up now. It's a new part of our show where, each person on the panel typically like says their closing summaries and whatnot, and then we have Neil judge them. But he is going to judge that you win. So I am not participating in this today. We'll just do our wrap ups, okay?
You don't have to be scared to judge me. You know that.
I judge you all the
I
time,
know
baby.
you do.
I'm just having fun. That was awesome, though, that you could do that. But that can't be better said. Neil, honestly, that's your wrap up because that is absolutely on point. And I just want to honestly maybe say the same thing because, you're right. I've been aware of that, all throughout this time, but it didn't go there because it is the reality that all of this powerful healing is so true. But there's a reason why I've said one of the most damning things you can have in your life is a super highly critical person. And what does that do on the opposite side of this whole conversation today? So it's true. We just focused on the coolness of what people can do to people. But the opposite's true, unfortunately, too. What says you, ma'am, to summarize us? Do you have summary thoughts or conclusions, questions?
I just think that when you find a person that you feel comfortable and loved and safe with, then that's the relationship that you need to hold on to. And it's okay to let go of the other relationships where you do not feel safe and you don't feel validated and you don't feel important. It's okay to let go of those. You don't have to hold on to those. Hold on to the ones that build you up and make you feel good and seek that positive energy, and your relationships are going to be better.
Wow. This is the Robinsons Throwdown. Nicely said, both of you. I'm just going to end the show on that because, Alicia, that is beautifully put. Appreciate you being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Saving the day. So, guys, we will see you next week.